So, over the past several months and even recently, a lot of people have been talking about Ken Penders. Now, I thought about doing this, and I figured, you know what? Better late than never. I mean, I'm just going to, shoot straight with you. And whether or not this is going to be part of my Shooting Straight series, which I've kind of declined in adding on to for a while, which is a playlist you can check out here on my channel, that's up in the air. But I'm just going to shoot straight with you guys. I mean, it's understandable that Ken Penders is going to go down as one of the most controversial writers in the history of the Archie Sonic comic, if any comic. I mean, the fact that he tried to age the comic up with its readers, one would admit is, admirable and could be respected. But I think what Ken forgot in the process in doing so is that this is always meant to be an all ages comic. Like, you can go so far, to the edge, with this all ages comic before you have to be reined in. And there were several times that Ken was going to that edge and he had to be reined in. And obviously he tried to basically, put things in there that were not appropriate, even if he had to make a subtle wink at it, if you will. I mean, one prominent example is when he did a paraphrasing, if you will, of a poem based around the Holocaust. Yeah. I don't think people at Archie Comics or anybody that read the Knuckles comic where this poem came from, or this paraphrasing of the poem came from, were none too thrilled about it. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure Ken Penders got some flack about it, but he may not, admit to it, ever. So, yeah, I don't think anybody at Archie Comics, behind the scenes, along with the readers, were thrilled at reading that, especially once they found out where he got it from. But if that's not all, we can look at the infamous scene from 150. And we'll get to that in a moment. But I think what we should have known, outside of some of the good stories he gave us and some of the resolutions during his final run that he was able to, resolve, because even he would agree that they just didn't make sense. Outside of all of that, he did, like I said, he had controversial moments, that he's going to live with, that fans are going to remind him of. I mean, for example, I think we all should have realized what we were getting ourselves into and who Ken Penders really was as a writer and what he was willing to cross, certain lines, that is, when it came to Endgame. I mean, the fact that he wanted to kill off Sally and he gave off his reasonings why he wanted to kill her off. And even when he found out, hey, the comic's are going to continue and you can't really kill her off, he still tried to keep her dead by basically making the Sally that would show up be discovered to be an auto-animatronic, which would be Robotnik, the late Robotnik's last twist in the heart with a knife towards Sonic and the Freedom Fighters. But once that got, found out, that too, pretty much, thanks to Sega and Archie, got axed, and he had to basically work with something differently. But yeah, we should have pretty much figured that the moment he tried to kill Sally off in Endgame, in issue 47, that should have told us right then and there, this guy's willing to do just about anything to get intrigue and interest in the comic. Or any comic for that matter. That he's willing to cross any line. And even if he's told you can't do that, he'll still try to find a way around it. And even when that gets found out, yeah, it should have told us right off the bat, yeah, Ken, he's a guy you got to watch out for. He might be a good writer when it comes to certain storylines and characters, but he's also somebody that's a writer that's willing to cross any line and basically do things for shock value. I mean, I remember doing an audio video on camera video where I asked the question of whether or not Ian Flynn did some of the things he did for shock value, and I still stick by the fact that what I said in there is true, that I believe Ian did some of the things he did for shock value, like with the Mecha Sally deal. But Ken, Ken was more about not only doing things for shock value, but also to get people talking, to get people conversing. To get even those that may not be fans of the comic, wondering what the heck was he thinking, coming up with this idea for this story. I mean, for example, going back to 150 and that infamous scene that everybody knows about between Bunny and who the readers and in story the characters thought was Sonic at the time, but was actually his evil doppelganger, the one that would be later known as Scourge. That infamous scene between Bunny and him, evil Sonic that is, that infamous scene is pretty much visually, dialogue editorially, pretty much, telling us that these characters had sex. These characters screwed each other. They, excuse my language, God, but they fucked, basically. And Ken, when confronted about this online, didn't really do, his best to hide it. He didn't really do his best to hide it. He basically even instigated it. He instigated it by trying to say that in story, and I did the audio video on this, kind of acknowledging that he did have a point a little bit, although I didn't agree with the resolution or the way he went with it. But I did agree in story it made sense. Because in story, Bunny was mentally and emotionally still trying to get over what she thought was a breakup with Antron and trying to find someone that might love her just as much, if not more. So I could understand from a storyline aspect that, evil Sonic, later known as Scourge, would take advantage of that emotional mental state that she was in. Even though I didn't agree with the direction he went with it. But yeah, you have a moment like this that even non-readers of the comic, when they see it, can pretty much point out that that's exactly what happened. They could pretty much point out what the heck is what's happening here. I mean, I guarantee you, Louis Lovehog, aka Linkara of Atop the Fourth Wall, was to review 150. Even he would have that reaction, not just in character, but legitimately, he would have that same reaction of, did they do what I think they just did? Because that basically is the vibration it gives off. And again, Penders, when confronted about it online, didn't do his best to even hide it or deny it. He actually, like I said, he actually, what's the word I'm looking for? He actually backed it up. He backed it up by saying what he did, by acknowledging that, hey, evil Sonic here is taking advantage of Bunny, and thus it makes you as a reader upset by the fact he's doing that. He's basically saying in that way that, yeah, they did screw. Yeah, evil Sonic did, have sex. He did fuck Bunny, if you will, without her consent. Well, she did give consent unknowingly because she thought he was her friend, which was not true. I mean, you have moments like that, and the fact that he's not denying it, he's more embracing it and accepting it. Of course, Ken's going to be looked at as probably the most controversial writer in the history of the Archie Sonic comic, if not any comic. I mean, I wouldn't say he's on the levels of a Alan Moore or a Frank Miller and all that. I'm not saying that, but still, he gives off those kind of vibrations with some of the things he does. I mean, if you really want to have controversy, kind of follow you a little bit throughout your career, how about doing a series of stories based in the future, and you're basically trying to tell people that this is the future of the prime continuity that you're currently reading. that right there is controversy, because later on you would have the newer writer come in, Ian Flynn, along with the people at Archie and Sega, and say, no, this is not the future, it's a what-if future. Basically saying that, yeah, it does seem identical to the continuity and the timeline that you're the current timeline that you're reading the current stories in, but it's not the future. It's a possible future. It's a what-if future. And then for Ken Penders, and I can recall this honestly, and some people can back me up as well, Penders didn't like hearing that. Because his initial idea was Mobius years later, 25 years later, known as 30 years later, that was the future. It wasn't no what if, it wasn't no possibility, it was the future. And yet again, you had writers, like Ian Flynn and Archie, and those at Archie saying, no, we're going to, rewrite it or reposition it as a possible future, not the future. And then, on top of that, if you really want to get controversial, now all of a sudden you have, Ken Penders being upset about that, and that pretty much, in my opinion, laying the foundation for him to take action and basically, behind the scenes, turn the comic upside down and cause it to go through what people consider a reboot or soft reboot. All because of the fact that he wasn't getting credit or royalties for his characters, which honestly, later on, we find out he did sign off on for Sega and Archie to own. And yet he, prior to this, comes out and says, no, I didn't do that, and here's the evidence that shows it. And yet now more evidence comes out saying that he did. So there's no doubt. There's no doubt when you piece all of this together. You piece all of this together, and there is no doubt that he's going to go down in history as probably one of, if not the most controversial writer in Archie Sonic history, if not Sonic comic book history, period, because of all the stuff he did. I mean, yeah. There's no doubt he gave us some great stories, throughout at times when he was focused or he felt like, hey, I'm about to leave. I might as well try to, write a story that gives legit resolution and everything, or gives an answers to what's going on. I mean, despite the fact of how we might have felt about 150, we can't disagree. We can't disagree that Ken did use it to resolve one major question, and that was Antoine. Why was he acting like a dick, right? And yet we find out that it's because, just like what's going on with quote-unquote Sonic in the issue, we find out that the Antoine that's acting like a dick is the evil doppelganger, known as Anti-Antoine or Patch. Who got sent there because he was trying to take out Evil Sonic, and Evil Sonic got, the jump, basically got a step ahead of him and basically turned the tables. So despite how we might feel about it, at least he gave resolution with that, and then followed it up with what happened in 156. So yeah, there's no doubt he has a lot of moments and things that he did in the comic, the main comic, the Knuckles spin-off and all that, that are controversial, including even some of the super specials. I mean, heck, people look at these, Sonic Super Special Girls Rule with the story based around Sally, where she basically becomes one with the source of all by submerging into the liquid golden pool, and does get the meme given to her of the Sally dip or whatever, or the Sally golden dip. I mean, and the way it's drawn, I mean, come on. There's controversy there. I mean, they had to re-edit it for the super specials, not for the super specials, but they had to re-edit it for reissuing later on when she was wearing her vest when she went in. Because in the original, which I do have a copy of, she's not wearing the vest. And that's the honest truth. But yeah, you have your controversial moments in there that he's been known for. But like I said, in between, he did try to give us some good stories. Endgame's a good one. There's no doubt. You know, like I said, the resolution, you know, of, you know, getting the real Antoine back and everything was a good one. Or was a good, you know, good way to, you know, go, you know, a good story and a good way to go out on, is what I'm trying to say. But, you know, but outside of all that, the controversial moments are the ones that honestly are going to overshadow all of that. The controversial moments are going to be the ones, sorry about that, but like I said, you know, the controversy is going to overshadow all the positive he's done. And that's why, when you really think about it, he's going to go down as the most controversial writer in the history of the Archie Sonic. You know, if not the overall Sonic comic books, period. But what do you guys think? What do you think? Do you think he is going to go down as the most controversial writer in the history of all Sonic comics? Or do you think maybe he gets blamed too hardly? What are your thoughts? Let me know down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. And again, guys, let me know what your thoughts are. And what do you think is the most controversial moments that he's done? Go ahead and list them down below in the comments and in the live chat. And until next time, guys, I'll talk to y'all later.